What's up, everyone? Hope you all are doing well today. So today I've got an interesting, creative, fun little commercial video shoot of the Loca Moca Monster drink. Now, before we start, I want to give you a little bit of a background as to where I got the idea and inspiration. I was inspired by Daniel Schiffer's video. So he does a lot of commercials. He does a lot of video stuff. I've learned so much stuff from him. He's really a talented gentleman. And recently when he did this video for Monster, he showed the behind the scenes. So what I did was I watched that video and I enjoyed it so much. And I really just wanted to see if I could challenge myself and recreate something close to that, but with an iPhone. Because I know a lot of you have iPhones and you guys love creative stuff and shooting videos and whatnot. So that's why I was just trying to get a really good video as best as possible with an iPhone. So before we start, I want to let you know that down below in the description are timestamps. So if you guys want to see like a guided step-by-step guide as to how I shot every scene, you can go to the behind the scenes section, and then there's also the commercial section. So I really hope that you all enjoy this video as much as I enjoyed making it, because it took me a long time. Lots of trial and error, but I really hope you enjoy. Alright, so real quick, I want to show you guys the behind the scenes of the actual scenes, and then I'll kind of run you through how I shot each and every scene. So I've got this fabric, which is up on this last shelf here, and then down across this table. And then I went out and bought 4 bags of beans, which you see here, and then you also see a bunch down here. So I've been at this whole thing for 2 days now, so that's why it's a mess in here. Now, I keep my MacBook right near me because what I often do is I'll just record a clip, I'll airdrop it to the MacBook, look over it, and then if I think that everything's good, then I'll go ahead and continue and move on to the next part of the project. I've also got a little tiny heater over here just to keep me warm, so if you hear that, I'm really sorry about that, but I need it. There's nothing I can do. And then I've got my main tripod. So this one is extendable, so it can get high, it can get low. I use this for a lot of the scenes that you'll find out. Then I've got this light and this light as my main light, just lighting up the entire scene. I'll link these down below for any of you that are looking to get these kind of lights and maybe do something for yourself. And of course, we've got our Mocha Loca cans. Sorry, hold on. Loca Moca. So, got this can, I've got both of them full. And then also got this grinder, that glass for the coffee. So, now I want to run you guys through each and every scene that I recorded and kind of show you how it was all done. Okay, now the first scene I filmed was the beans falling onto the camera. Now for this I used my 12 mini, so right there. I'm just going to set this down and show you guys exactly what I did. So I had the lights just kind of illuminating this area here, and so from the camera, I went into slow motion. I did it at 720p at 240 frames per second. And what I did was I simply just started the recording and I set this down on its back. And next, what I did was I filled up the bag and I just threw the beans onto here slowly. So from the top. And once that recording was done, it actually created such an awesome effect. Alright, now, so for the second clip, what I did was I just had the phone near the beans and I moved back, and I had my brother and my wife, so part of it was done by my brother and part of it was done by my wife. And what they did was that as I was passing with my camera, they were just throwing beans from the top. So basically giving it an effect like this. So as I was moving back, they were tossing the beans, and I just recorded that. Now for Daniel's video, what he did was he was using a probe lens on a DSLR. So what I did was I had this part of the camera, like I mentioned in my other video, I had this flipped downward so that way I could give the beans that large effect, and I just kind of panned back through that scene as they were tossing down the beans. So that came out to a really cool effect, and I was really happy with it. Okay, so my next clip I shot on this tripod. So I had the phone right here looking down at the beans. And what I wanted to do was basically throw the beans at the camera so they could transition. Now, if you notice here, when I go to grab the beans and I try to bring them up, it goes dark. So I had to set that light so it was a lot higher, so that way it was shining on my hand. So I'm gonna just adjust that light real quick and then show you guys again. Okay, so now in this scene, I was actually wanting to throw the beans up towards the camera because I wanted these to transition over into that blender and grinder scene. So for this one, what was important is that I had to raise this light all the way up, simply because if I had it lower, then when I came up to bring the beans to the camera, they wouldn't have shown properly. So if you come over here, I'm gonna show you real quick. So when I go to grab the beans and I go to bring them up and throw them towards the camera, because of that light, I'm actually able to see all of them. But if I actually lower this light down, then you're gonna notice that it gets dark. So that's the only adjustment I had to make. And the other thing I had to do was record in 4K at 60 frames per second because I wanted to slow it down. So I recorded it at a higher frames per second rate, and then I went ahead and slowed it down in Final Cut. So that's how I did that, tossing the beans towards the camera scene. Okay, so now I want to show you guys the actual blender shot. So for this, I filled up the blender with the beans, obviously. Now the tricky thing is getting a nice view from the top. So what I did was I set this in its place, and then from this tripod I went ahead and lowered the height and just moved around the phone until I reached a good spot that gave me a nice view. So you see that? That's not perfect right now, but you get the idea. I basically kept playing around with this to make sure I got a nice view. Now, let me show you what I did with the light. So now I want to show you how I actually got more light inside the grinder. So I took this light and then I took my second one here and I lowered it down. And now you'll see that there's more light inside the thing. So again, let's lower this down. Okay, let's bring this down. Let's get it to its position. And then once in this position, I kept just playing around with the light until I got the right look. And then once I was happy with it, I settled with that final position. So now when it actually came time to turn on the blender, I had to make sure that my hands don't block the light. So I kept this was actually pretty tricky. I just kept 2 fingers on it, and then I turned this and then the blender started. So my hand was right up here, and all I had to do was twist it to start it, but at the same time I wanted to make sure that I'm not blocking any of this light. Now this clip I actually went ahead and shot in 4K 60 frames per second, and then when I put it back into Final Cut, that's when I slowed it down. Okay, so now I want to show you guys the hot coffee scene. Now I had both the lights moved closer again, and from the tripod, I went ahead and lowered it down. Come over to right about here should be good. And then we'll move the cup a little bit. Okay, so now the challenge I was having with this was that there was steam coming up from the coffee. So I'm gonna show you guys what I did to counter that. Okay, so for all the hot steam that was coming up and reaching the camera, what I did was, as the steam was coming up, I was just blowing right at the camera so it would never reach it and distort the view of the camera. So I was literally doing this. So that way none of the steam actually got to the lens, but I was still able to capture the steam rising from the cup. Okay, so once again, I'm on the tripod, and for this scene with the chocolate, I need you guys to imagine that these beans are the chocolate, simply because I'm not gonna melt chocolate all over again just for this demo. So all I had to do was I had to move one of the lights to this area and one of the lights to this area. And then what I did was I went ahead and actually lowered the tripod a little bit. So right here, and that should be perfect. So now once I got the tripod set up and the light set up, I actually melted chocolate, and for this demo, again, I'm not gonna melt chocolate, but I was pouring the chocolate from right in this area. So as I was moving around, I wasn't casting any light shadows. That's why I had to adjust this light, because if I move it anywhere else, and if my hands get in the way of this light, they're gonna put shadows into the plate. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the final hero shot of the Loca Moca monster can. Now for this, I made a few adjustments, and mainly with the lights, simply because I just wanted the can to be the focus of the shot. Like, I didn't want these espresso beans showing up in there too much. So what I did with the intensity of these lights is that I set it down to 2%. You got it? Yeah, 2%. So I set it down to 2% on both of the lights. This one I actually have a little bit brighter right now, simply because, well, you guys wouldn't be able to see me if I turned it all the way down. Now, if you come in closer, so for this shot, you'll see that there are some hot spots right on this can. This is basically that light hitting the can, and it's actually just making it look nasty. So for this, I had my wife hold down one of the lights up here, and my brother on that side hold up one of the lights, just enough to where we could get a nice and clean enough of a shot. For the shot itself, before we did it, we took this water, sprayed it on the can, and if you look at the can, it's got condensation, right? So that was supposed to give an effect that this can is cold. And when we got the final shot, it actually was really nice. I had one little drop run down, and that was just mere luck. And we did the shot a total of 5 times, and it ended up being perfect. Now for the actual recording, it was done in 4K at 24 frames per second. And I just got the can centered, and I just moved slowly back. And the rest was done in Final Cut, just minor adjustments and everything. But that's it, that's the final shot, and this is how it was done. All right guys, that's gonna do it for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, I really hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Comment down below with any questions or anything that you'd like to say. And if you're not already, consider subscribing to the channel. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you all in the next video.